Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for joining this LinkedIn Live. To me, this is a long, long dream that I had. The dream is to be able to flip the script that instead of a client having to pay the fee to the broker, having the lender pay that fee. And I want to really explain to everyone the mechanics and how everything works and how it fits perfectly into the GParency membership model. So as you all know, GParency is a membership-based, full-service commercial mortgage broker. So someone pays a membership, think like Costco. You pay membership to walk into Costco. For that membership, you have two different types of buckets of perks. One is get the regular human full brokerage experience. You could pay to have a human up until today. You could have a full broker, myself and my team, without technology, the old-fashioned way, for $11,000 up front or a quarter point at closing. That was number one. You didn't want the full service brokerage. You felt, hey, I don't need you to take me all the way to the close. I just need a broker to give me the best quote, the best term sheet, find that new lender, work it through. That was the second level. We'll call that shop the deal. For $4,000, my banking team, again, a human, will work that deal until the closing. Everything else was pretty much based on utilizing our data, technology, and connections that gets included in the membership. So if you want to go direct to a bank, you just want to know which lender to go to, our technology will get you there. You want to have access to other data systems, you'll have all that. What we're introducing today is that on the full service brokerage, if someone chooses the option of the $11,000 upfront or the quarter point, you could choose the quarter point option, and at the closing table, you will not have to pay the quarter point. The money, we will get paid by the lender. So let me go back and tell you the economics and how this really works. So when you walk into a bank, let's go from a high level. This is how it works. When you walk into a bank will typically quote you an actual rate. Your coupon, it's called. Your rate is 6%. Another bank might be 5.95, 5.9, 6.05, 6 1/8, 6 1/4. They give you the rate. How they got to that rate is between themselves. They decide. What's the cost of the bank? How much risk do they have? How much reserves do they need? What are the cost of deposits now? And they give you that rate. They don't tell you the economics under the hood. And in that world also, the decision-making process of everything is not so much logic-based. There's a level of logic to it, but it's also, there's a human there at the bank who might like a certain neighborhood and might not like a certain neighborhood a certain way. So there's a lot of emotional goes into the decision-making, how things operate. When it comes to Agency CMBS, so let's just backtrack for a second. CMBS is commercial mortgage-backed securities. That's where you typically find these large investment banks. They'll close on typically the larger transactions, but they do smaller deals as well. They'll bundle them together and sell them as a bond. So those are commercial mortgage-backed securities. Similar in concept. It's not the same thing scientifically, but similar in concept is how Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac operate. There's other perks there to a borrower as an implied guarantee, but Fannie Mae does similar, but Fannie and Freddie Mac only stay in the multifamily space. They're chartered to help for housing. So they have a division that does homes, 1 to 4 family, and then it's called multifamily. Well, the two of them, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac together, they go by a group. If you want to describe them, it's agency. So therefore, if you would take agency loans and CMBS as one bucket for the purpose of this conversation and explanation, it works the concept the same way. The concept is that they don't give you a rate. Your rate is 6%. Instead, what they end up doing is they end up giving you a formula of how they tell you how much profit they want to make. So for example, if we were doing this transaction, if you were going to Fannie Mae to do a deal, the way it would work is as follows. Fannie Mae would say, you go to get a quote. So let's say using a shop, a lending shop. It could be any shop, from the best of the shops. It could be from Arbor. It could be from Greystone. It could be, pick any shop. I don't want to go sitting there, which am I quoting and not quoting and that. Any shop. What happens is you call up the shop. The shop then goes underwrite your deal. And we're going to use Fannie Mae as an example in concept. It's not exactly, but enough to give you the context and apply the same concept across. They go out and they turn to Fannie Mae. and they send the deal out to Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae underwrites the deal, and they turn back and say, oh, this is a loan of $10 million. We'll use a $10 million example. And on a $10 million example, Fannie Mae is going to say, we want to go ahead and give you a spread of 200 over, which means that the profits we need in order to cover our costs is 200 over. Another word for 200 over, think about 200 over in terms of pennies to dollars. 200 pennies. You could say $2. You could say 2.4. So they would use a number of 2 over. What is the 2 over, 200 over? That 200 over is over the 10-year treasury. So for argument's sake, if the 10-year T-bill is hovering today around 3.5%, so it's 3.5 plus 2 brings you to 5.5%. That money covers the cost that Fannie Mae needs to operate. All their costs, they have to securitize it, they have to they imply guarantees, whatever they do, that's their costs. Including that cost is servicing. They have to service the loan. So sometimes they may turn to that lender that you went to, and you call the Fannie Mae lender, because Fannie Mae doesn't lend directly to the public. They lend through these dust shops or agencies in the middle. They would go and say 200 over includes servicing. Many times the servicer is the lender you go to. So within that 200 over, there's a certain amount of money that's going to that shop to service the loan. That's the first bucket. Now that shop has to make money. Just like as a mortgage broker, I have to make money, that shop has to make money. So this is where the beauty of the whole entire system works. Many times people wonder, how is it possible that I didn't pay the bank any fee? And wow, I pay nobody. Someone made money. How'd they make money? It's called yield spread. Fannie Mae, when they do the loan at 200 over, they want that shop to make money. They have to make money. They have to operate. So they will tell them, we have a minimum amount that you must make on that transaction and price it into the spread, which works. This is the concept. It's going to change as interest rates move up and down, but here's the concept. Approximately on a 10-year loan, approximately 15 basis points equals the present value equals to 1%. So approximately on a 10-year loan, if this lender would price in, instead of 200 over, they price in 215 or 230, they'll get an extra 1 point or 2 points at closing. So let's say this Fannie Mae shop this lender wants to earn 2 points on the deal. They would go ahead and turn around to the broker who brought them the deal or to the borrower and say, your deal is 230 over. So and behind the scenes, 2% goes to Fannie Mae itself. 30 basis points, equivalent to spread, present value, goes to the current shop. Now, let's talk about the dialogue, what happens many times. What happens is that you get a quote from 230 over. You turn around as a borrower, you tell your broker, or your broker goes back to the Fannie shop and says, no, 230 is too high, I'm competing, it has to be lower. That becomes a little bit of a fight. Who eats that extra 10 basis points if it goes down to 220? So sometimes the lender turns to Fannie Mae and says, listen, we need to win this deal. But I'm supposed to operate. So I know I'm not making a big profit. I'm only pricing in 2 points, let's say, or 1 point, whatever the numbers. I'm using the example 2 points. It's irrelevant if it's called a lot or a little. There's minimum fees and all that. Let's go for the purpose of this conversation. So Fannie Mae would say, you know something? Let's eat it, both of us. I'll go 195, and you go ahead there, and you take the 5 basis points. So now the lender's making a little bit less, and Fannie Mae's making a little less. Sometimes Fannie Mae say, you know something, Mr. Lender, you're not making big money on this deal. You're not pricing too much. You know something? We will eat it ourselves. So now you could tell the borrower he'll get the rate at 230 over, and at 220 over, and you could still earn your 30 basis points, your 2 points, and everything is fine. What started to happen sometimes with heavy competition, it gets much tougher when the lender is getting a lot of pressure to go to Fannie and say, no, I need a major waiver. They can't afford anywhere in this ballpark. The whole rate has to be 200 over. But then how do I make money? So there's a minimum where Fannie Mae would say, no problem, I'll go down to what I need, but then you can't make extra, you must make on the minimum. Let's pause this over here. Let's go to the next step. What happens? What happens along the lines, the mortgage broker walks into the lender and says, hey, I'm steering your business. I want to make money. So the mortgage broker, it could be because the client doesn't want to pay a full fee. It could be because the mortgage broker wants to take advantage. It could be because that's just the metric of how the transaction is set up. The mortgage broker says, I want to make some money on this deal. Let's take a good case from the beginning. The borrower comes to a mortgage broker and tells the mortgage broker, I want a deal. The borrower is ready to go, using that bank example, it would have been 6%. At that 6% rate, works out to 250 over, right? The 10-year T-bill is at 3.5. 250 over works out to 6%. If there was a client that was happy at 6, and I call the client back up, the mortgage broker says, hey, I could get you 5.9. The client's ecstatic. And behind the scenes, in this scenario, it could have came back originally at the rack rate, let's call it. The bank, when Fannie Mae gives their initial quote, it's the rack rate. The rack rate was 200 over. So they take the rack rate 200 over, they added 30. The broker may say, you know something? I'd like to add another 10. My client's happy at 6%. So if I add in another 10, now you're coming to the table of 3.5 plus 200 plus 30 plus 10 is still the client's ecstatic. And then the broker could still go on and take a fee from the client. That's that time. So in such a scenario, Fannie Mae started realizing, whoa, I quoted you 200 over, and you're building in so much spread. I got to be a partner in that. If you're going to want to price in above a minimum threshold, you're entitled to make money, lender. You want money and share with a bunch of parties, do what you want. But we're not going to go and allow you sometimes to price in that extra last half a point, a 3/4 of a point, or 2 points at a rate of 15 over. We want to split it. Or no, you asked me to beat myself up, and then you have the nerve to want to add on a lot of spread. No problem. For every 60 basis points, you add a later point. If every 30 basis points, I'll add a point. So as far as the borrower is concerned in all these cases, the borrower it's not disclosed in the front end. It doesn't have to be disclosed. So in a typical case, most brokerage shops, in a typical case, like a referral fee, most brokerage shops have a relationship with the Fannie shop and says, hey, I'm going to bring you almost all my business, like a correspondent relationship. Let's share. I don't want part of the yield spread, but in that initial servicing strip, pay me some of that servicing strip. And I don't add a premium to the borrower. Sometimes they have brokers that, whether disclosed or not, I'm not getting involved in that part of the business, where they might come back and say, you know something, I also want to make in the yield spread. You made up 2 points. I want some of those 2 points you made. And then even on top of that, they might say, add in even more. Let's make more money together. And then on top of that, charging the borrower. Sometimes they come back to the loan officer and they say, Mr. Loan Officer, let's make a deal. Whatever money I get on the front end, whatever money I get in points, whatever back end, let's put into a pot and we'll split it. 50-50, 75-25. And there's all different structures that work from here. So what is it so to continue on the normal case and with the competition today, in the normal case competition today is that many lenders are working at the bare bone. They're working at the minimum fee because there's so much competition and deals don't even work. Now it's in reverse what's happening. Someone comes to a lender, they get an offer of $10 million. They get an offer of $9.6 million. It doesn't work. So now you have borrowers that are paying down. They come to a lender, what would happen if I paid down $100,000? Can I have a lower rate by 15 basis points? And then the yield, then the debt service coverage works better. So that's like the next level it's happening now is the other way around. Deals aren't working, so people are paying in to buy down the rate. But this is what goes on every single day on all types of deals. When I wrote that I loved about this business when I understood it, because now this is the sophistication of this business. Once you understand the different rates, here's where it gets very creative. You go back to Fannie Mae and say, Fannie Mae, I want to do a loan. They offer 200 over. What happens if I took a safe loan? I only wanted 65% loan to value. They may come back and say, oh, 65% loan to value? The pricing is much cheaper, 160 over, let's say. I'm making up the spread difference now. But now, depending on who you are, where you're getting other money, I notice sometimes there's certain owners that they have a lot of money to liquid. Rates sounded so cheap. I could lock in today at 5.5%, 5.8%, or when rates were lower. But using this example, no problem. But they found out that if they took lower proceeds, they get an even lower rate, they might take it. Or they might make a blend. Hey, why don't they take 65% from this lender? I could do a mezzanine loan. And even though the rate's higher, but on the blended average, it might work out lower. So the whole entire business of finance is the full capital stack. It used to be when you did a deal, there were two buckets. There was equity and there was debt. Now you could have a bucket of debt, mezzanine, preferred equity, and equity. And really, using a calculator, which your parents is about to roll out a calculator that will allow you to figure out the blend, sometimes, depending on your equity structure, it might be worthwhile to take a higher leverage deal because it's cheaper to pay that debt service than it is in an equity split. Sometimes the opposite. Depending on your preferred return, it might be better off to take more money from equity and take less from the bank. That's where the world opens up. But to stay on point of what I'm bringing up over here, what's GParency's model, what we're working on right now? GParency has worked out with several lenders. We're talking to all lenders, but with several of the lenders, they're going to be able to work out a deal where we'll get a referral fee from the servicing strip. So it's not affecting the borrower. Sometimes it's going to come out of the regular minimum spread, the regular spread they're building in anyway. Sometimes that quarter point may come out where it's priced in. But in every single scenario, you'll be able to ask the broker at your parents you're dealing with, when you choose to have us get the lender to pay the fee on your $10 million deal or above, you'll be able to have us ask the lender and where that's going to be so you could have a choice at the end. So there's a few caveats we're putting in just to put in perspective. The whole thing we're discussing as a quarter point is roughly 4 basis points. So even in a scenario where it's not like we're adding on a ton where there's going to be crazy splits after that, you'll know in advance. Would you rather pay your $100,000 fee upfront? Would you rather have it amortized into loan and pay nothing upfront and just have an added 4 basis points to it? Sometimes, like I said, you won't have to add it all because the lender, to get the business, would say they'd rather get the business from Japarency because Japarency is not charging the client. Japarency is only looking for a max of a quarter point. And also, when we build it in, we're max asking for $100,000. So this whole scenario is on a $40 million deal, from 10 to 40 million. On a $100 million deal, we're talking about 1 basis point, 2 basis points. The referral fee as a percent is much smaller. So effective today, Japarency is rolling out for agency and CMBS loans that the borrower will pay the fee on a permanent loan above $10 million. Because when it's a shorter term loan, it gets a little more complicated. When it's a bridge loan, it doesn't really work the same. So instead of having a bunch of carve-outs, I'd rather have it one comment across the board. $10 million and above, permanent loans, agency or CMBS, you don't have to pay the fee. The lender will pay. We will disclose to you exactly where that fee is coming out of so you can make a decision. Is it worth it for you to let the lender pay? Or if you decide yourself, you want to go ahead and make it and pay it from there. I want to see if there's any questions or comments. So who carries all these loans? So these loans ultimately get securitized, right? The people buy bonds backed by Fannie Mae paper and even break it up and they tranche it, it's called. Not only do they take this $10 million loan, they take $100 million worth of $10 million loans, and then they take out that risk and they say, okay, the piece above, 75% will trade at this spread. Piece from 70 to 75, I'm rounding it to numbers that just for make it clearer, from 65 to 70 at this spread. The blended spread with that profit works out to 200 over. That's why in a lower leverage deal, when there's no piece above a 65% leverage, they could afford to do that at a lower spread because there are people who want very safe deals. Even in spite of the market today, with all the corrections in the market, if you have a deal that's going backwards and people say, hey, the rates are dropping right now, I mean, that real estate values could be dropping or cash flow is tough, a deal that has a 65% loan to value is deemed safe ever. I remember when I came into the business, and I think it still holds true today, is that a lender told me a loan was never lost on a normal underwritten loan at 65% leverage. There was never a loss taken. So that could be the safest type of money. On 80% or 75%, sometimes you can run into issues. As you can imagine now, when the world is priced based on cap rates and that service coverage, there might be enough money to make loans take from there. But in every single case over here, Japarency, to end this, Japarency is a membership-based full-service brokerage, a human brokerage shop. You're a member first, like walk into Costco. In exchange for that, you have the ability now to do one equity raise for free for LP equity. We will do a $10 million CMBS, permanent CMBS, or agency loan for free, paid by the borrower. It's not really free, paid by the lender. I'm sorry, I said paid by the borrower, paid by the lender. And then every other deal is $11,000 up front, a quarter point of closing. And if you even don't want us to do all this work, just shop the deal for you. That's at $4,000. And from there, if you want to just go yourself with the lender, we'll go yourself. I wanted to say, and I'm trying to get I can't quote the client, but here's like the classic example of where the market, where the Japarency played a major role. We had a client who typically goes direct, has long-term relationships, huge net worth, huge financial statement, and said, listen, I have an industrial building that I'm financing in Michigan. And, and typically as a mortgage broker, when I only get paid at closing, the client would say, I said, he has a bunch of relationships. So why would I spin my wheels? The odds are I was going to take my information and go back to the bank. I'll just help them and I wouldn't make money. But in Japarency scenario, called up Japarency as a member and said, hey, here's $4,000. He was ecstatic that he had, the team shopped it to over a dozen lenders. Ended up finding him a new lender, gave him 3% more proceeds, more flexible prepay. And when he circled back, he was ecstatic, but he always preferred the comfort of his own bank. So he called up his bank and said, listen, I went to Japarency, they found me a new lender. and it's better. I'm going to go there. And the lender ended up matching it. So you got the best of both worlds. You got the benefit of transparencies of finding a better lender and a better deal, leveraging it, and get the close of the bank he knew and trusted. He goes, the best $4,000 he ever spent. So I would like to thank you, all of you, for participating. Have an amazing day. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more business together. Thank you.